And the CB channel, it's no more of value to society than the CB band. In fact, in some ways, maybe the CB radio operators, because they're on the road and so forth. But I realize, of course, the CB is outdated now because of cell phones. It's really outdated. I mean, how many 18-wheeler truckers really have CBs in their vans anymore? Not a whole hell of a lot of them, right? They've all got cell phones. So they've kept up with technology, right? But I don't know, this craziness. I know when this equipment quits, I'm not going to be replacing it. And if I'm still kicking and I still got my feet both on the ground and not under it at the time, I'm not coming back. I mean, that's just it. It's nothing more than a glorified CB service. You know that. AC9MV, K1LEM.
K1LEM AC9MV. Very good, solid all the way through. Yeah, back in the day, trying to draw a schematic for an FCC person to look at. Yeah, those were intimidating exams. And could you imagine? I am certain that if we went back to those standards, we would lose probably 90% of the licensed amateurs today if we went back to that standard. So, it's over with. That's not going to happen. It's maybe what we need is just a complete redo of the whole amateur licensing philosophy. Maybe we need to go to, sort of like buying a license plate for a car. Maybe we all need to pay $50 a year, and we get a license to operate amateur radio for 1 year, and at the end of the year, you got to pay another $50. And they could take the $50 and maybe do a little enforcement, try to get some of the big fish, and maybe that would clean things up. Maybe that's the problem, that we need to make it more modern rather than this idea that you pass a test once and you're licensed for life. I mean, that doesn't happen in many other fields, I don't believe. Maybe we should just do it, yearly, I don't know, maybe $20 a year, $50 a year, $100 a year, and you get to operate for a year, and they'll take that money and do the enforcement. Maybe that would help a lot. I don't know. And the comment about Riley retiring, Riley retired twice. The man announced his retirement, and then a week later took it back, which was very suspicious. Like, what's up with that? It's so it made you wonder what was going on there. Again, those are sort of political positions, but maybe the whole licensing enforcement mechanism needs to just be overhauled. On the subject of amateur radio, when they did the enforcement, the FCC Enforcement Bureau the reorganization, they had hired a couple of consulting firms to come in and do an analysis. And one of the things they did, and I've told this many times, it's out there on the internet, you can find it. There's a consultant's report, and what they did was they went to the FCC field engineers themselves and asked them in a questionnaire what they thought they should be working on, what they thought was important. And the thing that you mentioned was exactly what they mentioned. What's important for FCC enforcement, amateur radio was at the very bottom. It was the last thing on the list. And the first things on the list were, of course, just what you mentioned, interference with public safety, FAA, fire police, all that stuff, and then work their way down the list. I think there were 10 or 12 categories. But at the very bottom was amateur radio. And the bottom line there is, if you stay in band and you're not interfering with someone else's license grant, and you're not using, 10 kW and splattering all over everything, just stay there. Don't bother each other. So I think what's happened is it's sort of, moving to that way anyway. But I think maybe we need to go to like a yearly license, and then maybe then we could get some sort of decent enforcement enforcement. And the other problem with this enforcement is it's like we have no enforcement, and then you have $25,000 NALs. It's not. I think it needs to be more like a traffic ticket. If they catch you not IDing, that's $100. You know what I mean? Instead of this thing where there's like a threshold, which is like mass murder, and then they hit you with this big fine. Maybe there needs to be something in between, but the whole law is not written like that. It's all written based upon terrestrial radio and all this other stuff. So it would need a massive rewrite, and I don't know, that would probably take years and just never happen. So this thing's just going to sunset the way it is. But the person you're talking about in California with the $25,000 NAL, that's W6WBJ, Bill Crowell. He is an attorney, and I have conversed with him a couple of times via email and a couple of times on the phone, and I will tell you that he looks at things slightly differently. He kind of, in his opinion, the people that he was trying to check into the net was interfering with him because they wouldn't let him check in, which is very, very interesting because, again, back to Part 97. Part 97 is, not the clearest thing, but if you read paragraph 97.101, subparagraph B, it says that each station licensee and control op must cooperate in selecting the transmitting channels and making the most efficient use of amateur frequencies. Well, if a net is trying to exclude you, if a net will not let you participate, the interesting part is the net is in violation of 97.101B, not the person trying to check in. So, he's going to be out there. Now, there are issues with what happened out there with the music playing and other things, so that really complicates it. But if you go back to the basic problem out there, he was basically trying to check into a net that they would not recognize him, and that led to a lot of these other follow-on issues. So sometimes it's not real clear, what's really going on in these cases. And I see that all the time on 75. They won't let certain people check into a net. They won't recognize them. They'll talk over them, and the net's actually in violation of 97.101 paragraph B. It's real clear in that. I mean, which is one of the few subjects that Part 97 is clear. Anyway, very good on I got my list here. Let me check. Let's see. What was the other thing? Oh, yeah. The whole thing back to certain operators here on 72. Could you even imagine some of these operators having to sit in a 4-hour test? I can't even. I don't think some of them could stay awake for 4 hours. I mean, it's just not going to happen. Those days are gone. K1LEM AC9MV. Yeah. You're right. Of course, K1LEM Friday. Look. First of all, we're really some of the questions that we're discussing here are what an attorney would call moot. It's sort of moot. It's moot. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to pick up the pieces from something. It's like what you're really doing is, and I'll make an analogy here. You're seeing a great dinosaur crash out of a tree, and you're seeing other dinosaurs come up and eat its eggs. And there are a few dinosaurs left out there that are flying around the sky. And you're saying, what can we do to save this dinosaur? Well, there's nothing you should do to save it because it's a natural evolutionary process that dinosaur is going to die. That's it. I mean, it's over with. Do we have to preserve every damn thing that's out there? And amateur radio falls into that group. It hasn't evolved. Just take a look at some of the idiotic stuff you hear every day of the week. I'm going QR Tokyo. They're going, what? QR Tokyo. What? QR Tokyo. QR Tokyo. You're going to Tokyo? Tokyo, Japan? No, QR Tokyo. I am Tokyo? No, I don't get what you're saying. I'm going QR Tokyo. QR Tokyo. Yeah, sure. A lot of it. I mean, you could not explain this to an intelligent Boy Scout and
have that Boy Scout take any interest in it at all. And I'm talking about maybe a 12-year-old, okay? Just an intelligent 12-year-old Boy Scout would have no interest in amateur radio whatsoever. And the fact is they don't. There's nobody out there that's 12 years old is in the hobby anymore, right? No. But it's interesting. I hold a commercial first phone, and at one time I had a commercial second-class radio telegraph. I probably missed my big chance. I should have gone to sea back when I was in my 20s, and then I'd have a really nice retirement from the Merchant Marine. But in any event, shape, form of indifference, I took a look at how the FCC has eliminated the second-class radio telegraph. Now, I don't know what it's good for, because I don't think there's a lot of RF on board merchant marine vehicles anymore. There's RF, yes, but it's through satellites. That's basically, they probably have an electronic technician on board, I would guess. I don't know. But that's maybe what it's evolved into. It's not a radio operator. It's not a radio operator. It's an electronics officer on board some of these ships. Now, I don't think that the FCC is licensing these techs at all necessarily, but I looked at the exam for radio telegraph. The questions are archaic. They're talking about lead-acid batteries. They're talking about plates on tubes. Jesus Christ, the FCC is keeping these exams in perpetuity, apparently for no other reason than they don't. I mean, it's probably easier for them to keep these things going than to take all the negative letters that would come in if they decided to eliminate the second-class radio telegraph license. But one thing I did notice is they still have the code. It's still the code. You still have to do that 20 words a minute receiving in Morse. Yeah, oh yeah, it's still out there. Now, I took a look at another country's requirements for amateur radio operation just because I was curious. So I took a look at India because I am a Buddhist, and I did think maybe I'd like to visit India someday if I get a chance. But in any event, I took a look at their requirements, and in India, a country of 1.3 or 1.4 billion people, huge population. There are fewer than 20,000 amateurs licensed, and then I took a look at some of the requirements. There are 2 examinations given for a license in India. You don't get to be a truly licensed amateur radio operator for at least a year. But one of the things that I found interesting, and you can check this out if you wish, one of the requirements to get an amateur radio license in India is you have to pass a police examination. You have to go to the police station and be cross-examined by the police and have a background check. Now, we know goddamn well that certain people on this frequency would never have a license if they were in India for multiple reasons, not just one. What about character reasons? What about all of those wife-beating and forgery convictions that you claim you never did? Drug dealings, etc. But in a little country like India, it's got many more people. The power limits in India, by the way, are 400 watts, not 1,500. And I believe the first license you get, you're limited to 100 watts, and then you sort of wing your way up to be able to have that 400 watts of power. Now, they do have the code exam. By the way, there is still receiving and transmitting in international Morse code. You need to do that to get a VU call in the country of India, okay? Now, not here, by example. Now, in Canada, they haven't really changed their laws. Now, I don't know about Mexico. I haven't really looked at it. I don't know. Couldn't tell you. But for some unknown reason, the U.S. decided, in its great unwisdom, basically, to make amateur radio into a glorified CB service, K1LEM Friday. So that's what you got. That's what you get. Now, I personally do not think that you can renovate amateur radio, that it's a question of more regulation and so forth. I mean, I could give you some examples of how, if it were redeemable, but it's a dinosaur. It's trying to die. Let it die peacefully, okay? It's already crashed. Let it die. Let it die peacefully. Don't keep trying to bring it back. What you could do is, I was thinking, if the government doesn't want to do this enforcement, and I mean having de-effing vans that actually where people go out and they spend a day trying to find out who's causing this interference, and I mean people that will get a phone call. Somebody like on the fire department, you never can tell when a fire is going to break out. Firemen have to be on duty 24/7, 7 days a week, and so forth. And also a broadcast engineer that's contracted for a broadcast station. You never know when the station's going to go down, and you have to be there or have a substitute. If that broadcast station calls you and says, "Hey man, we're off the air," you better get your ass over to the transmitter and get them back on the air. Otherwise, other than that, you haven't got a job. So, but we know the government doesn't work that way, right? They only work at 9 o'clock. They don't work holidays and so forth. And I don't know about these $25,000 now. I think you're right. It's sort of ridiculous. This W6WBJ, he's never going to pay the $25,000. The most that's going to come out of this is the following. When his license comes up for renewal, they are going to what they call red light his account, and they're going to find out not that he has nows against him. Legally, that doesn't wash. What they're going to find out is that he owes the government $25,000 that hasn't been resolved at the red light search, and they're not going to renew his license. They will not renew his license. No. And it has nothing to do with his bad boy reputation. It has to do rather with a loophole in the law where if you owe the government money, the FCC is going to check that at renewal time to find out if you owe them money. Now, it could be $25,000. It might be $5. Until you pay up what you owe, they're not going to renew your license. And that's the end of the story right there. Secondarily, what happens is somebody that's been a so-called FCC bad boy, no, they're never going to get the $25,000 out of W6WBJ. No, of course not. And he wants to protect his property if he owns any, I presume he does, from being liened by the government, but I don't think the government would lien his property. Anyway, they haven't done that with the ex-guy in Maine there that it sort of, tried to oppose, the waters that were out there. And who knows why he's doing it. Maybe he's doing it just to show how ridiculous a lot of these, maybe he's doing it for a lot of the things that I do on 185. I'm trying to show you how ridiculous amateur radio is, how outmoded it really is, how worthless it really is, how under-intelligenced almost every single operator that's out there is. It's ridiculous. It's like a dinosaur waiting to friggin' fall out of the tree and die. Let it die. That's my opinion. Now, you mentioned previously that the ARRL has some interest here, and they're going to work very hard to preserve their nest egg because they're there. And I'm not going to criticize immediately and without any actual fact the ARRL, but she said it so well. I mean, they just have a monetary interest in preserving the status quo on some level, and they're going to do that, and it's very obvious why they're going to do that, isn't it? I mean, it's obvious why they're going to do that. Now, what's going to happen in time is all these people are going to die out. The Boy Scouts are not going to come up and take up the ranks of the fallen old gray hairs that have, gone to heaven. Of course, we know none of them are going to heaven. But in any event, I'm just being facetious here. So nobody's going to take up their cause, and amateur radio is going to die a very quiet death. And that's it. It's just going to evolve until it evolves out of something, where it is now. But it amazes me that people want to go back and they believe in the old-time standards of the 1960s or the 1950s or whatever. Those days are gone, and those days were completely killed off by the FCC in 2007. I mean, it was the last nail in the coffin, right? To take the code out. That was the last nail in the coffin. I mean, there already were some nails in the coffin. I mean, technology's advancements just being some of the nails, and the lack of young people, the lack of diversity, the lack of women in the hobby. Now, one has to ask, I mean, what the hell is it that's keeping women out of this hobby? I honestly believe it's the fact that women are too intelligent to get involved in this crapola. That's all. They don't want to sit there every night on 75 meters and blow their minds with a bunch of old, wheezy old men, do they? No, of course they don't. They have more important things to do, like make muffins. But you know what I'm talking about. AC9MV, K1LEM.
K1LEM AC9MV. I'm just laughing out loud with there's a jammer in there, and he's just going off saying blah blah blah. He's been doing it for like 6 or 7 minutes. Oh man. I think we need some FCC direction finding, but when they arrive at the location, they need to have the straitjackets. You know, I think maybe some of this could be like trolling for psychotic behavior, but some of it is actually quite comical. There's a lot of jamming going on. I got about 80% of that maybe. Some of these guys need to go QR Tokyo there, blah blah man. Anyway. Okay, very good on the amateur radio requirements around the world. That's interesting that India still maintains that. But yeah, with 1.4 billion people, that's wow. That could be quite a group, quite a herd of people, because they have a very vibrant and growing educated class, of course. So. Yeah, that would be interesting. You're exactly right with W6WBJ. If you have some time, every once in a while, get out there on Google and do a Google search on W6WBJ FCC filings. He filed some responses to FCC interrogatories back, I think that is one of his earlier cases. And if you want to read something that is just hilarious, I mean, he uses it as an opportunity to poke fun at the whole system and everyone in it. I mean, his responses to FCC questions, they're classics. I mean, they are just hilarious. He was one of the FCC enforcers, and I won't mention his name, but I'm pretty sure you could guess, was referred to him earlier as a dickhead in some, I think at a ham fest or something, referred to the dickhead in California, and W6WBJ brought that up in one of his responses to the FCC, and you know how that showed a complete lack of professionalism and all this other stuff. I mean, it was very funny, but actually to the point. So yes, he spends most of his time poking fun at the whole system. He claims he understands administrative law better than the FCC enforcers, and I believe he's correct. I mean, he can quote a lot of these cases. Now, that doesn't mean that everything he's done is correct either. You know, some of the music playing and things that he's been accused of. Now, I'm not out there, so I don't know. But anyway, some of his answers to the FCC questions that are documented out there on the internet, you need to read those. I mean, they're lengthy. They're like 20-some pages long, paragraph after paragraph of responses, and they are funny. I mean, they are absolutely hilarious. So he's quite an entertainer in and of himself. He's, you know how Weird Al, used to make fun, used to do parody songs of music. Well, Billy Crowell used to do parody songs of common, music, but he would do it with an amateur radio spin. So you used to be able to find that out there on the internet, but it's very difficult to find them now. But I mean, some of the songs were just really good. So he's quite an entertainer. And some of the things that he's pointing out does indicate a problem with what the FCC is doing. And he knows how to work that crevice, so I think you're right. He'll be dead and gone, and they'll never collect a penny from him. anyway, the jammers are apparently waking up and getting their amplifiers on, so it's getting a little bit more difficult to copy you, but give it another shot, and we'll see how far we can run this. K1LEM AC9MV.
It's really funny, though. The jammers don't come in here at all. I don't know if it's just my superior antenna or not. You're like 20 to 25 over, and the jammers are like S2, S3. They're way under you. Somebody's starting to play music, but I mean, it's not even touching you. Well, of course, the truth of the matter here is that a lot of the people that want to find solutions for amateur radio are looking back at the glory days, and they're not seeing where it's really evolved and what's really happened. And the FCC sort of has been a little bit schizophrenic because they don't speak with single voice with regard to, I guess, virtually anything. But certainly with amateur radio, they don't speak with single voice at all. So it depends upon the situation that you're talking about, and their actions don't necessarily indicate that they are that interested in amateur radio at all. And yet they'll go after a provocateur, because that's all really this W6 is. He's a provocateur. And they'll harangue him and make him an example. I mean, $25,000. I mean, you could go out on the interstate and kill somebody and not be fined by the DMV $25,000, right? It's not going to happen. Drunk driving on the fourth and fifth offense, isn't that a lot more dangerous to society than somebody that's on 75 meters on some kind of an old folks net that's causing interference with music or whatever. Now, the point of the matter is, what is this thing about music? Do you realize that this music thing goes way back to the 1930s when there were no licenses at all, and there's no good reason why you can't transmit music. Absolutely none. You can transmit everything else. Why not music? Because then you'd be a broadcaster. No, you wouldn't be a broadcaster. That's not by definition. So what is this? Well, if you find out what really happened in the 1930s, the broadcasters wanted radio frequencies taken from some of the amateurs, and the amateurs were so-called amateurs, wanted to keep a service, an amateur radio service, and then the broadcasting or the RF trades or whatever services were separated into various types of departments, broadcasting being one, Arthur Godfrey and, Lipton Tea Time and that kind of crap. And then the people that were on 75 meters going, CQ dog X-ray, CQ dog X-ray, hello dog X-ray. Hello dog X-ray. You got to be kidding me. But anyway, facetious and as stupid as that is, they're called CQ dog X-rays. But in any event, the point was, it goes back to a political thing that happened years and years and years ago, way back in the 1930s. And that was why music was prohibited. It had nothing to do with anything. I mean, think about it for a second. Why is music, is that in the same category as profanity? I mean, why can't I... Winchester Cathedral, you're falling me down. I'm in your town. So basically, that's what I'm trying to say. All of this pretentious horse manure they're just basically in the FCC rules that have not been revised. They never will be revised because of the powers that be want apparently the situation to remain as it is. Now, what motivates W6WBJ, I think, is probably he's an attorney, right? So I would suspect he's just being contrary. He's a contrarian, and he's sort of like pushing the envelope and seeing how far the FCC will show its absolute total stupidity. Now, the thing that really should happen here, in my humble opinion, is the FCC should have, this has now gone over to wireless and the internet, things like this, it should have let the W6WBJ situation just die in and of itself, because he's going to grow tired of this, isn't he? Isn't it evident that he's expending some energy to get on 75 meters and do this alleged interference. Isn't that eventually going to wear him down? I mean, he's not like K1LEM. Now, you know K1LEM had an automated system, right? I mean, that's how the FCC shut him down, shut Baxter down. He had, I don't know how many transmitters, and they were all on HF, and the FCC sent a contingent up from Boston, and they sat outside his house, and they went to his house, and they knocked on the door, and they monitored, and all of his transmitters came up on HF to transmit his tapes or whatever he was doing, which could have been construed as a kind of broadcast, and I guess maybe it was, except that it was directed, I believe, at the amateur radio community, and I believe when you direct opinions or editorials or whatever to the amateur radio community, it's not construed as broadcasting. I could go down on 185 right now and read a treatise on what I think about amateur radio. I'm not directing it to members of the general public, and that is not construed as a broadcast. Now, go read Part 97. You'll see what it says about broadcast. Now, with regard to the musical part, I don't understand the prohibition against it. You understand if somebody's got a digital telephony, they got these flex radios, the digital telephony, that you can transmit music, not make broadcasts for the general public, not that anybody would want to listen to you anyway, not set up your own radio station, but you can transmit music digitally. In the digital telephone, he does allow it. It's only on the other analog modes where it's, for some unknown reason, continues to be a scourge. Oh, my goodness. I'm hearing rock music come out of my eardrums. Oh, my goodness. How un-amateur this is. Well, you know, the thing that I believe is sometimes when I hear music on 200, it's the most entertaining thing I've heard on the frequency all day. You know, it's the most entertaining thing I've heard on 200 all day. You know, who wants to hear a bunch of old men that haven't even graduated from high school sit there and go, "Well, top of the morning to you. Oh, your sounding just gorgeous, just beautiful. Everything down here in Ripley, Tennessee is just fine. So what's all going on up there, boy? What's all going on up there, boy? Hey, Danny down here, Danny, Ripley, Tennessee. What's all going on? You're sounding gorgeous. You're sounding beautiful. So what you're doing, you're just sounding, I mean, that is so much bullshit. I mean, you got to get out your hip boots, don't you? Have to put up with him? Because all he is a goddamn channel master. You know that. Directly from the CB band. AC9MV, K1LEM.
K1LEM, AC9MV, very good. Yeah, we've got a lot of screamer rock going in on there. I guess it must be that you're on that vertical and the high angle is preventing some of these close-in signals to you from hearing them. They're pretty loud here. Yeah, CQ dog X-ray. Yeah, okay. Let's see, I'm looking at my notes. Let's see. Oh, yeah. W6WBJ, yes, he is contrary. He is a retired attorney. I think he likes doing this stuff, so I don't think he's ever going to stop. I mean, as far as whether he would wear himself out on 75, I mean, I think it's been going on for decades. They've been tussling. He's had previous issues with the FCC, and you're right. All that stuff, you know, why is it prohibited? I don't know. You know, historical? I don't know. You know, I've heard conversations on 75 where two guys will discuss their hemorrhoids for, you know, an hour and a half in unbelievable detail, which to me, you know, it seems like, you know, there's some of this stuff, you know, maybe it's just all should be allowed. I don't know. Anyway, it's gonna go wherever it goes. But the worst thing, though, is, you know, this blatant attempt to interfere, you know, with music. I think that's the big problem. It's like they need AC9MV. Hold on. I had to reset my clock there. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to mention is, if you have some time, get out there on YouTube and do some searches on YouTube for W6WCJ. There are some videos of him out there, and you'll get a better sense of him. You know, he is being contrarian. He is But he asks a lot of good questions, you know, and I think a lot of he does enjoy, you know, making the FCC look like, you know, the Keystone Cops, essentially, you know, behind the times and a little bit out of step. But anyway, Whit, I'm going to have to migrate away from the radio for a little bit, and the jammers seem to be getting a little stronger. I don't know if propagation's changing. I'm on an inverted V at about 65 feet, and I'm hearing a lot of people right now. Maybe I need to get a vertical so I can do that switch in and out of the receiving antenna that would maybe mute some of that off here. I might have to think about that. Anyway, it's been a good QSO. A lot of good ideas out there. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I guess, you know, we're getting older. You know, I guess we just let it happen. You know, whatever they want to do with it, let them do it. You know, I'll play with it when I want to play with it. I'll pull people's chain when I feel like it and walk away when I don't. You know, it doesn't mean that much to me anymore. If I got into a fight with the FCC and they wanted my license, I might actually just send it to them. You know, I don't. It's almost not worth fighting over this stuff anymore because it's kind of meaningless. And there are so many other hobbies that if you're into technology, and I know that you have other areas, you're into music, the astronomy thing. There are so many other hobbies where technology has made it really a lot easier now to enjoy other hobbies. That there's a lot of things out there that can keep you know, people that want to be intellectually stimulated with a hobby. There's so many other things that aren't terribly expensive. The cost has come down due to all this great, you know, silicon and software that we all carry around with us. So there's a lot of competing. Well, that's part of the reason why young people aren't into this. My God, could you imagine trying to get someone interested in this hobby versus, you know, a computer, you know, an iPad, you know, iPhone 7, Android devices that are, you know, $85 that do unbelievable things. You know, this hobby's suffering from its technological obsolescence. So, you know, there's just a lot of other things to do. So this is just one of those things. If it changes in a way that I don't like, I just walk away from it and go find something else to do. And I'm constantly doing those other things anyway. I don't frequently talk about them because I know where that goes. You know, you've got a lot of strange people on amateur radio that like stalking people. So you got to kind of watch that a little bit. But anyway, great conversation. I've heard Mike in there periodically. He might be too close for you. A lot of jammers and music players with an attempt to jam, not just trying to play music so other people can enjoy it. These guys are playing headbanger music so that they can try to jam us out. But anyway, we'll see you. I'll probably be back in here a little later, but I've got to go run and go do something. K1LEM AC9MV. Name here is Joe. I don't know if I've ever given you my name. My name is Joe. And I call you Whit because I think that's what you used to go by. You know, if that's not appropriate, let me know. Anyway, K1LEM AC9MV.
Okay, Joe, fine. Not a problem at all. Well, actually, I'm not hearing anything except you here. You're about 25 over 9. There was some headbanger music in there, but it's way down below the S9 level on the vertical. And so I presume, you know, it's coming from the vicinity. You say Virginia. Who the hell knows, really? Yeah, the truth of the matter is there's so many other intellectually interesting areas where you can build your skill set. Music recording being one. Astronomy being a really, really big one. It takes a lot of patience. To be a field astronomer, I mean, we could go on and on. The number of hobbies out here that really require some mental skill setting and are challenging. Now, amateur radio doesn't require any mental skill setting at all. Just buy a piece of equipment, go on. Do you think of that asshole in Ripley, Tennessee? You know, he used to call me, I am Daniel G. Torvich, and I'm calling you Gary E. Davis. You know, oh my goddamn, he's calling me, Joe, he's calling me on my goddamn landline. What in the hell with a bearded ex-convict calling me on my, is this to intimidate? I am Daniel V. Turovich. I said, hey, you call one more time, you son of a bitch, and I'm going to call the Ripley, Tennessee Police Department. You think I'm kidding? Try me. And I've got you on recording. Every goddamn time that you've done this, you've operated outside the line. And these people, they don't seem to get how the law really constrains them in amateur radio to do amateur radio and not actually attack people personally, their property, on the internet. We've got that phony OO, that KA2UFP. You would not believe how mentally insane that man is. That man's insane. He went after my YouTube sites. He tried to crack into my emails. We know who he is, and there are other people out there that are committing mail fraud. They're committing all sorts of federal offenses and buying things and then charging me for it and this kind of shit. They don't have any common sense. They think this is going to irritate me. Well, I don't know whether it irritates me or not, but if we ever find out who the hell you are, you're going to go to the federal prison. And believe me, I have people out there that work for me. Like how about you two? How about California, Cupertino, or wherever they are? They know who the hell this guy is. They trace back his TCP/IP right to his practically to his house. They know who he is. He prosecutes the son of a bitch. It's called harassment. It's called terrorism. It's called by different names. It's not a question of whether you believe, although this has come to be a real problem in the United States, whether or not you believe you're being terrorized. You don't know whether you're being terrorized. And I've had this with the police, with a neighbor I've got. I say he's got guns, he's threatening. Well, has he shot at you yet? No. Well, if you ever shoot that, you duck. Of course, you could buy a gun yourself. I don't want to buy a gun myself. I want you, as the sheriff's department, to take this man's guns away. He's unstable. He's mentally unstable. So I can't do that. We got a Second Amendment we got to uphold here. Oh, God in heaven. You never, until you deal with cretins, you're so frustrated. I feel like I'm that guy, Eddie, what was it? Green Acres. Remember Green Acres from TV, where they moved from Manhattan out to this place in Illinois or wherever it was, in this cornfield, and all of the stupidity that went on, all these people around them, they were so stupid. Eddie Albert, who played the guy, I don't know what his name was, played it. Oh my God in heaven, what next? Green Acres is the place to be. Corn City is the place to be. Green Acres on, Well, that's what we've got. That's exactly what we've got, for Christ's sake. We've got nothing else but Green Acres. We've got a bunch of cretins. We've got unqualified people. We've got people from the CB band. Now, who to blame for that? I don't know. We always like to turn around and try to blame somebody for it. I suppose it's, if you want to really level it at somebody, it's the relaxation of examination standards. And the only place that I can find where you would have to level that responsibility would be the FCC, because they're the only ones that have the authority to do that kind of thing. But anyway, Joe, it's been nice to talk to you. We'll take it easy. I'm going to go get something else to do here, and we'll catch you on the flip side, old buddy. AC9MV, K1LEM. I'm going, bye.
7-3, we'll see you. AC9MV.